Bring in Senator Steve Bennett now. Thanks to Nancy Liu in Malibu, represents California's 38th district, which includes part of Ventura County. To Nancy's point, Assemblyman, you had that new fire, I guess they called the auto fire, last night, and that started spreading, and then they did some good work on it. I think it was 50-some acres when I looked last, but there's all the fires. You see left side of your screen's the auto fire, so that's the general area we're talking about. What's the latest from your neck of the woods today?
Well, they did a great job last night. I had a firsthand view of the auto fire as it peaked around 10:30 last night. There were a half a dozen helicopters, great work by the firefighters. It was in the Santa Clara River bottom, and it flared up with the winds, but they were able to knock that down and fortunately keep that from escaping out of the Santa Clara River bottom, which it would have been a real disaster if we had the heavy winds hit at the same time that that thing had escaped. So firefighters did a great job last night.
And they're trying to do their best today. We just had that. It was an interesting shot up the Brentwood area, I guess Mandeville Canyon, where Brian was. So they were watering down those houses. You see some of the work that's being done there in Los Angeles County. But again, by you, they're doing the same thing, prevention efforts. I mean, what's your biggest worry going into, it seems like the next 24-ish hours are critical?
Well, my biggest worry is that we've had a fundamental change. You know, if you think about 100 years ago, 1906, 150 years ago, we used to have whole cities burned down because fire would just jump from building to building because there weren't fire setbacks, et cetera. We've done a great job with fire setbacks and those things. So we don't have one structure catching on fire and burning down a whole city. But now what we have is we have these ember showers coming from the wildfire areas, and these ember showers can just go on for hours and hours. So our concern is even a small admission can then send embers miles ahead and spot fires. And so exactly what you saw those firefighters doing, trying to make sure that they ember shower proof homes. That's the new mantra that we have to have in California, because it used to be, just wildfire areas would burn and we were able to do a pretty good job of protecting structures. But with more droughts, with more erratic winds and more intense and dry winds, those embers are now getting into the homes, and we have to be able to have a whole mind shift change in terms of what we need to do to stop these urban fires.
As we saw it on the first night, I mean, how quick, that's the thing that I was blown away by how quick it could happen, going from one house. Sometimes there would be a car out front, the car, then next thing you know, the gas tank explodes, there's a tree, goes from the tree to another house, and it was happening literally within seconds. But at the same time, what's interesting, and you probably know more about this, you can do some prevention work that's effective. We keep hearing about these stories about individuals, someone up at their own house that puts some retardant on their house and then has a sprinkler maybe and then takes off, and that's the house that's standing. So on the one hand, it seems like, well, there's not much you can do, but then you hear there is some work you can do prevention-wise.
Yeah, well, I would disagree that people say there's not much you can do. There's quite a bit you can do preventatively, but at the same time, you have to recognize if you get 90-mile-an-hour winds and the fire is literally blowing horizontally and shooting embers and ash, if you haven't prepared by then it is pretty difficult when you're in the middle of the firefight. So that's what I mean when people say there's not much you can do. Once it's happened, but you can harden your home. You can clear all that brush away. And that's why you see in many places, you'll see, 3 homes burned and another home not burned. And a lot of times it's because they did have appropriate hardening. I watched in the Thomas fire 5-6 years ago here in Ventura, the house literally above us, while I was on the roof of our house, I watched a house that had flames, from the house right next door to it, heading right at it for 2 hours, but it didn't catch because it had a tile roof, it had stucco walls, it had double paned windows, it had the vents all closed, and they had removed all the ember catching material, from around the house. So you can harden houses. It doesn't work in every situation, but in these places where you have these spot fires, it can stop a house from catching on fire. Yeah. The other thing I just might point out to you real quickly is once you have a house catch on fire, everybody else is at risk because now that house is sending embers everywhere. So it benefits all of us if we can do a better job of hardening our homes.
Yeah, you're helping yourself, you're helping your neighbors. Let's hope for the best for certainly the rest of today and tomorrow and beyond in Ventura County and elsewhere. Thanks, Assemblyman, for coming on. We appreciate it.
You're
Assemblyman
welcome.
Steve Bennett.